Welcome. I'm Tammy Fellers.
I'm Katie Perez.
Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be looking at the session using 4DX to create a culture of change.
You might be asking yourself right now, what in the world is 4DX? Great question. Tammy?
4 disciplines of execution. And the 4 disciplines of execution comes to us from the Covey group. Franklin Covey was the original founder. He's passed away, but it's his group that has written this book.
And we know them already from Habits of Successful People, The Leader in Me, other really wonderful programs that have shown great success in a lot of different avenues in the business and education world. So we're excited to learn a little bit about how these 4 disciplines of execution can really help support you as you look to make changes within your organization.
Absolutely. We're excited to bring this, just the introduction to you.
So we're just going to jump right in. To get started, I want you to kind of think for a second about just the goals that you set as a team or as an individual and your success rate with accomplishing those. My personal experience is that the more goals I have, the less I actually accomplish, which is frustrating at times, but I think that most of us can relate to that statement.
I encourage you to think for a minute about those goals at a personal level as well as goals professionally, because we usually have them in both places. You know, I have this ongoing weight loss goal.
Don't we all?
Right? And so what are those things that are important to you and you've kind of set goals around, and how successful are you in doing that?
I think that one thing we can all agree on is that without an intentional action on our part, those goals kind of sit at a crossroads of a place, the intersection of a good idea, but never going to happen. The weight loss goal is a great example of that. I would really like to fit into those jeans from 2 years ago. And unless I start doing something, it's not going to happen.
Those jeans are still going to be sitting on the shelf.
Yeah. Darn. So with that, we can put a different focus here. So we're going to give you a moment to, as a team, we're going to pause here for a second and ask you to kind of generate a list there. So what are some of the goals that you are trying to accomplish at this time, either as a team or as an individual? And currently, what strategies are you using to help ensure the success of those endeavors?
So as you generated that list of those goals and your success in those, for those goals that you weren't successful in, how come? Why not? What got in the way?
I'm going to guess it was probably the long laundry list of daily chores and responsibilities and interruptions that prevented you from really making quick movement or sustainable progress on those goals. So perhaps that could be termed, Franklin Covey in their program calls it the whirlwind, the imminent threat of the whirlwind, that in order to really accomplish a goal, we have to put it in the forefront of our brain on a regular basis. Otherwise, that whirlwind will take over and consume everything.
I got to grade those papers. I have to plan tomorrow's lessons. Those are all important things. They're a part of our daily life that no matter what we get to do, how do we do this new or different thing that's outside of that whirlwind?
Right. Without intentional focus, it will never happen. It remains at the crossroads of a good idea and never going to happen because the whirlwind will suck it in and take over that time. We have to put about 20% of our time maybe on new goals. And so how do we do that? How do you make that really happen in your daily work? So we're going to give you another moment here to pause and generate that list. We have to be aware of what it is that's getting in our way before we can actually start to set those things to a side and put intentional focus on our new goals. So as a team, sit down and start to brainstorm. What are those things that exist in your daily whirlwind that limit your ability to focus on your big goals?
So when you think about this list that you've created and the goals that you have and the gap that exists between them, what now?
Well, this is where we really want to identify what is the wildly important goal that we have, or as Franklin Covey puts it, our WIG. So to do this, we're going to kind of simulate this process a little bit with an example that we've come up with. We want to identify what won't happen without intentional focus. So let's jump into our example.
Okay.
we're going to go with the school example of parent engagement. So we're going to say that right now, our school only has 35% of our parent population really actively involved in student learning activities. And we think that parent engagement is really a key to student success. So we'd like to increase that.
And as Katie said earlier, as you think about it, if we don't put intentional action to it, it's not going to happen. It's been at 35% without us putting that action in. We may get a few points fluctuation, but until we think of those strategic and intentional actions to really increase this, we're not going to make that happen.
Right. It's not going to happen on its own. So we're going to think about what are those things? What is our goal? We need to really clarify that. And then how are we going to move it forward? So now that we know what our gap is, we know that we want to increase parent engagement, we need to start to put that into a goal form, something that we can provide action around. So we probably have some experience doing this in a SMART goal setting or other goal writing opportunities. We're going to look at this a little differently through these 4 disciplines of execution. So the first one that we're going to introduce you to is discipline 1, which is focus.
And so with focus, you're going to write your WIG. When we think about writing a WIG, like Katie said, you have experience in writing goals. They have 4 very specific things that we need to think about when we write that. 1, it should begin with a verb. 2, we are defining that lag measure. And by lag measure, it means you can't assess it until it's already happened and you can't go back and change the results. So if I want to be a certain weight by May 1st, when May 1st gets here and I get on that scale, I can't go back and change it. It's the post results. And so they want us to determine that or measure that in terms of X and Y and keep it simple. Don't put all these extra words in it. What is the piece? And then focus on not how. Focus on what, not how.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, make sure it's worthy and winnable. Worthy, Katie.
If we are going to devote extra time to this, it really needs to matter for our organization. And winnable is something that we have to be able to achieve. We don't want to set goals that are unattainable for us. So in this example, our wildly important goal is going to be to increase parent engagement from 35% to 75% by May 15th of 2019. Now, why didn't we go to 100%? Well, thinking about the current culture of our school and the time that we have between now and May 15th, we feel like an increase of 40% is a pretty significant goal to reach. And then we can always move the bar up from there in future applications of this process. Absolutely. We feel this one is worthy and winnable.
It's worthy and winnable. It is focused on the what, not the how.
So now that you know what your wildly important goal is, it's time to start making some moves to make it happen. Now, again, here's where the tricky part comes in. A lot of times we think about what we want in the end, and we don't put as much weight on how we're going to actually get there. So discipline 2 of the 4 disciplines of execution is leverage. So in this one, we're going to act on the lead measures. What in the world is a lead measure?
So a lead measure is what are those predictable and influenceable things that you can do that will ensure you reach your WIG. So what are those things that you can do so that we know parent engagement will increase? If we do them, we will make a difference.
Right. So here's our example here. The predictable and influenceable things that we could do to meet our goal of increasing parent engagement is 1, increase the opportunities for the parents to engage, and 2, to make personal contacts with families to help build those relationships so they feel comfortable coming into our schools. So these are our lead measures. We believe if we do these 2 things with consistency, we will be able to increase from 35% to 75% of parent engagement.
So that means if I, teacher in this building, make intentional actions around point A or point B, then we know that we will move towards meeting our goal. So I'm going to make those actions around those 2 pieces.
Right. So these actions will be separate from our whirlwind. We're putting special focus on making sure they happen, and they're things that we believe will provide a lever to help move our progress towards our wildly important goal.
Help move our progress from 35% to 75%.
Right. So a couple of examples of this. Maybe Tammy and I are on this team, and this week we sit down and we come up with what these actions are going to be. A commitment I might make is this week, our team is going to send home a parent survey to identify the different types of activities that maybe, parents get their feedback on what it is would bring them to school. Is it maybe when we offer food for them to come in, they'd be more likely to come. Or maybe when it's specialized into a niche area that their students are passionate about, they'd be more willing to take their time to come into school. So sending a survey home to figure out what those things are.
And maybe my action for the week is I'm going to contact 3 families and personally invite them to math night. So I know I've sent the flyer home. I have done all of those things that I normally do in that whirlwind. The email went out from the school secretary. But I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call 3 sets of parents and personally invite them to Thursday night's math night.
So you can see here that the action that I said I would do is related to our first lead measure of really identifying what it is and increasing the opportunities for parents to engage, while Tammy's is more around our second lead measure of those personal contacts to build relationships.
So now we're going to take a look at the third discipline. First discipline, what is the wildly important? Second, how are you going to get there? Third is discipline 3, engagement.
So how do we know how well we're doing? Going back to a weight loss goal, you know how well you're doing because you're putting on your pants every morning or you're stepping on the scale regularly. So that's your scoreboard for that. It increases engagement when you know how well you're doing towards a goal. So this is the same thing here. In discipline 3, engagement, we are connecting to the emotion and the energy behind our team putting effort towards this goal. We want to be able to see that. And we do it by building a compelling scoreboard. So the scoreboard needs to measure both your lag, where it is you're at in the process, going from 35% to 75% in our case, as well as our contribution towards the lead measures. How many parent contacts are we making? How many new offerings are we giving to our parents to come in?
When you think about your scoreboard, it just needs to be simple and engaging for the team that's on there. When you think about a scoreboard, how often do your kids ask, are you keeping score on this? When you're playing that game, is this for a grade? Right? Because that scoreboard does matter to our level of engagement. And so it's that monitor to help ignite us and say, oh yeah, look, we're moving. I'm not sure about you, but when I think about a weight loss journey, I cannot wait until May 15th to get on the scales the first time. I've got to be doing it along the way so I can see that progress that I'm making.
Right. So you can monitor what's helping and as well as what's impeding. Absolutely. And make sure you're making wise decisions along the way. So now that you have discipline 3, you are engaged in this game, you are working towards a worthy and winnable goal, and you're using some pretty strong actions to provide a lever to make those move. We're ready for how we actually kind of manage this process. And that's in discipline 4, which the key word there is accountability. We're going to create a cadence of accountability with our team to make sure that this all happens.
Absolutely. I like to think of disciplines 1 through 3 as designing the game we're playing. Right. And discipline 4 is actually the game.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
So when you think about discipline 4 and meeting the cadence of accountability, as we think about that through Covey's groups lens of what do they mean by that, is we're going to have those check-ins weekly. You can't wait to check in May 15th to see if you increase parent engagement. We're going to check in. Maybe that's all of us at the primary level, K2, teachers getting together for 10 minutes and having what we call a WIG meeting. It's that quick weekly check-in.
So it's 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes where you meet with your team, and it's a very quick, did I meet the previous week's commitment? Did I do what I said I was going to do in order to move our lever? And did it have an impact? And then what am I going to do next week? So each person goes around the circle, reports their 3 statements there. Yes, last week I sent out the survey. I got 10 of them back, and I really think we need to offer a literacy night for our families. And I think that if we were able to do hot dogs and chips and provide some childcare, we would really increase the number of parents we had. I learned that from the survey. Next week, my commitment is I'm going to find a time to schedule that literacy night.
So mine was that I would call 3 parents. So I did call 3 sets of parents to invite them to math night. 2 of them are going to be able to make it. 1 of them can't, has a conflict with something else. I got to tell you, me reaching out to them just created another layer of relationship, and they were so excited that I'd reached out. And even the family that can't come was like, can you let me know when the next thing is? So I got positive feedback. I definitely think that's going to help move our lever. What I'm going to do next week is I'm going to call 2 more parents because I had such good results from that. I want to call 2 more families that have not been engaged with us yet this year.
So you can kind of see how that meeting would go quick. We probably we're not doing this in a full faculty meeting. We're doing this in smaller groups that are really holding each other accountable.
And we're also not planning that literacy night Katie talked about in this meeting. We're just saying Katie's going to take the initiative and get that group started. But outside of this, that's just her next action. Don't get bogged down in the details in that meeting.
Personally, we have seen the 4 disciplines of execution work in a variety of different ways as we've done this work in our own house with different conferences and projects that we have done here at ESDAC. We've also seen it work with schools that we're working with in this process to set up new initiatives within their building from a variety of levels, whether that be new MTSS plans to redesign of their entire building. So this is a great way to kind of embed that process and hold everybody to the fire to get it done. So as we end this session, we would encourage you to have a conversation about how might the 4 disciplines of execution support you in the success of your goals.
Thank you for joining us today.